Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying.
Yes, guys, and welcome back to the unhinged, the undefeated, and the unbreakable TCP Live, coming at you live at 7:30 p.m. every Thursday evening on YouTube and available ad-free on YouTube memberships and on Patreon. Rowan, have you caught your breath?
Yeah.
He came into the our little studio here, literally like this. Hey mate, you right? Yeah, good, yeah.
I was running out of time because I came back from work and then recorded the data pod, which you can see on Saturday, and then I had enough time, just about enough time to do the run. For okay, let me quickly go for a run, and then I finished my run, and I was still quite far away from home, so I didn't really time that one well because I wanted to time my run so that I get home, at like 5k, and I just went on my own sort of jolly.
A little world. Do
So
you listen to music, or what do you do?
Yeah, so at work, I'll always listen to like an educational podcast, and then on a run, it'll always be music. Always music.
Oh, I listen to educational podcast. The answer there was the Cannon podcast and the Cannon podcast.
The Cannon podcast.
That's all I listen to.
All that sort of stuff. How are you?
Welcome back to TCP Live. I'm good. Yeah, I'm pretty good. Yeah, not bad. I've had I woke up quite late today, so it's been a bit of a I'm not like fully well. I wanted to go and see my sister who's just had a baby. I'm just worried about giving the baby whatever I've got, so I couldn't go and do that, which was a shame. So I had a bit of a line, and I feel better for it. I feel better
for oranges,
it.
A lot of vitamin C.
A lot of water. I've just got one of these Frank Green things.
That's massive.
With my initials on it. Actually, I'm not going to show. I've already revealed too much personal information about me on the show. I think I have said my initials at one point.
I know what it is.
Nonce penny, yeah. One of these big boys, and drinking more water at the minute because of it. Isn't it funny how like when you buy like it's like when you buy a notebook, you just end up keeping more notes. You don't ever need to write more notes, but when you want to write in a nice notebook, you write more notes. You know what I'm saying?
You know what it is as well? You know when you get like a new notebook, I feel like it doesn't matter what age you are. When you get a brand new notebook, at
really
the start, yes, at whatever age, like you know when you get a new notebook, you want to keep it as neat as possible. But then the transition just gets worse and worse as you go through the notebook, and then in the end, it's just like
yeah. So you're saying at the beginning of sort of a phase of something, it's sort of excellent and neat and something, and then as you go further along the phases, it gets more and more messy. Would you say that's sort of
and a bit more of a plateau, maybe
more of a plateau, and maybe, for example, sort of towards the end of something, it's getting really confusing what's going on. Sort of maybe one part of the football pitch. We're back, baby.
That's why you are an elite podcast. You see that's quality.
Tonight, we want to talk Forest. We want to talk some injury data that came out today. We want to ask, are injuries just an excuse? I want to talk the sporting directors. David Ornstein put out a great article earlier talking about the 4 candidates for the sporting directors. And then at the end of the podcast, we want to rank Mikel's seasons so far. We want to rank Mikel's season so far. But thank you to Josh Tom, who was first in the house. I actually probably should answer that question. That's quite a good question. Vive Lad, you're always here. What a hero. Matt G. Can I just say, when we we drew. When we're bad, the people who are here on TCP Live, I love you. If you're listening to this, I love you. Genuinely. Because you're a real one.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Win, lose, or draw, we're Arsenal. And
we're Arsenal through and through.
Arsenal through and through. Just Tom says, which players have, in your opinion, improved or declined this season? For me, improvers are Raya, Gabriel, Timber, MLS, Partey, Wanyeri, Saka, and decliners are Erdegaard, Rice, and Saliba. Okay, pick. You get 3 each, both ways. Stock rising and stock falling from this season. 3 players whose stock's gone up for you, 3 players whose stock's gone down. From the top of the season to now. Let's pick one player whose stock's gone down. We've got enough negativity.
Should we go back and forth? Let's go back and forth.
Yeah. Let's pick one player whose stock's gone down. I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't want to do that.
I mean, stock's falling right now. Obviously, Martin Odegaard.
I think there's people I'd put before him.
But like who? in the context of this
Raheem
season.
Sterling.
But he wasn't here last season, though. So I thought.
No, true.
Yeah. So
Thomas Partey.
I don't. So if it's all relative, right? So if we look at Thomas Partey's performances towards the back end of last season, I actually didn't think they were great. He had some good games for sure, but he also had some really poor ones, which is understandable coming off the back of a big injury. But this season, overall, I think he's been better than last season, relatively. So I wouldn't put.
Yeah.
A good way of defining stocks falling, because Partey's also going to leave, really, isn't he? Like, it looks likely that he's going to leave.
Classic Cannon podcast defining terms. What does it mean by
what does
it mean by stock? Just say they're all rubbish. Get them out. Yeah. I probably like in terms of from the end of last season, like Ødegaard was our player of the season twice in a row.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so
from the end of last
high,
season to now.
Yeah,
I hear what you're saying. I feel bad on Ødegaard.
I feel like I would say out of me, you, and George, I've been the biggest Ødegaard defender.
Yeah, just because you haven't had to make enough content on him. We had to do a scouting on him, mate. That's true. I think. Do you know what I realised today? I think I'm too soft to be a football fan. Like in that way, I need to go back to just being I've got too engaged in the wars. It's one of my big resolutions from this year. Just get out of the wars.
Expand on that. What do you mean by that?
I just think I'm quite a soft, vulnerable guy, and I don't like saying players are bad. I don't like when things are going wrong. I don't like when we have to say. And people go, "Oh, you're making it." Okay, then fine, just turn it off. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't like the bit where you have to go rubbish. Because I think people are really trying. It's their livelihoods.
This is the same.
And I'm sat here on a podcast, having never coached a team in my life, going, they're rubbish.
Yeah, I feel like this. I think maybe there's too much empathy, isn't it, that we have? Like, but I can't. I'm the same. Like, if I'm in my own space, right, watching at home, for example, even at the ground, you get frustrated when a player misplaces a pass or whatever. But like, I could never go hard on it. That's why I can't go hard on Sterling. I know, even though pretty much everyone can, I can't go too hard on Sterling as well.
I know what you mean.
I'm looking at all the other. Sometimes it's as brutal as no. Stop trying to find the positives in something. It is literally as it says on the tin. It's not good enough. Sometimes that is always the case, but I just can't take that stance. And I feel like it is important to always trying to understand the why, as opposed to just going straight in at a person like Ødegaard's been rubbish. Like, you could go with that sort of narrative. Ødegaard's been rubbish, but then maybe we should look a bit more at the why. But then, like I said, you go back to that thing of it is literally just as it says on the tin, not being.
Yeah, and sometimes you do just have to say that.
Yeah.
David, good evening, Unc.
Oh,
I hope you're referring to the fact that I am an uncle, not the fact that I'm old, David. Because there is a picture of a baby in your.
If you're old, then I'm old as well.
In your profile picture, and I hope you're not a baby. Isak and Cesco, or Cesco and Barcola, or Isak and Cesco for me.
I'd go Cesco and Barcola.
Ooh,
yeah, I love. Barcola.
Well, you disagree with me, so you're wrong. Yes. That's another thing that I really dislike, and it's online, and it's not just pure thing. I'm just talking about Twitter. It's not just Twitter. It's YouTube. It's Reddit. It's wherever online communities. I feel like you have to talk in this just absolutely mad way to almost get attention. So if we disagree, it's because you're lying. Yeah. If you've got a different opinion to me, you're gaslighting me. If you've forgotten a piece of information or just haven't mentioned a piece of information, you're intentionally misleading. So, or maybe I just didn't mention it. Like, what? I just don't like it. I really don't like it.
Extremely binary. It's very binary.
You have got different opinions from me, and that's wrong. And you tell me why now.
Yeah. It's also right now, I didn't even bother tweeting after the game yesterday because just can't be bothered. I know what's going to come for the replies. I know what the main story is going to come out of it. I'm just not gaining anything from it. And it's also kind of people trying to convince you into something you don't believe in, and they'll keep trying and trying and trying and trying as well, and try and peer pressure you in the sense. However, we're very resilient. I'm very resilient.
Give me an answer to this. Isak, why would you want Cesco and Barcola?
Because I really rate the project of Cesco, and I think Barcola is everything Mikel wants at left wing. But at the same time, you could say Isak is everything Mikel wants at centre forward. But I really do. I just really like the prospect of Cesco becoming that Isak, and also Barcola being ready right now. I really like that dynamic personally. I think, yeah, that's
sorry,
why.
Sorry, I'll cut you off.
No, that's literally it. That's literally
it. I think with Isak, for me, Isak is more win now than Barcola. I think Barcola is win now, but I think Isak is more win. I think Barcola still has development to do, and Semenyo I think is the perfect foil for Isak in many ways. I think Semenyo will be the kind of it releases Isak to do a bit more of what I think he does. Like, he doesn't need to run so hard. He doesn't need to be necessarily the fulcrum of our shot taking, because Semenyo can take a little bit of that off him, and he can do a bit more. Because I think Isak, honestly, all round, I think his game is just incredible. And Cesco, yeah, I think like it's close. It's close.
Do you know what it is with Isak as well? I don't think we realise how much Isak's game has improved this season. Like his growth has like grown exponentially from the moment he came to Newcastle and his last season at Real Sociedad. So last season when we faced Newcastle at home, Alexander Isak got absolutely bullied by Gabriel Saliba. Go and watch it back. Absolutely bullied. This season, it's chalk and cheese. And the big thing with Isak, for the people who had question marks over him, which I think were unfair, really, because centre forwards it takes them around about 25, 26 where you see their actual peak, absolute peak. Go and look at the best centre forwards out there in world football over the years. It's like 25, 26. That is the prime age. And Isak was just developing at a really good rate. And the big criticism people had was that he couldn't withstand contact well enough in transition, not in terms of running with the ball and making runs back to goal, being able to hold the ball up and then release players in behind. And this season, he's taken that to another level. Right. And he already has all the other aspects to his game to a T. And the big thing of Isak, I always say, is like, you have the best strikers are the ones who like kind of finish emphatically. They give the keeper absolutely no chance. He hits top bins every single time. Like it's crazy.
His shot placement is for a guy of his size as well. Woo! George Cole says, you guys make losing less intolerable. Thanks, George. And thanks for your super chat. Thanks, Dave, for your super chat as well. Man, it's been a tough season. I think we'll come on to this a little bit later in terms of like ranking Mikel's seasons and how he's done. Mm-hmm. But like, I think in terms of, I think almost every other season, either my expectations have been lower, or I don't feel, and it may be just recency bias, I don't feel we faced as many external barriers. I think I can actually deal a bit more with internal, but when I'm like, because I feel like almost I have a bit more control over it or something. Absolutely. Like I can deal with like a player, because you can sign a new player, or you can, when it's like an injury, or and again, injuries, you have to, well, as we'll talk about later, you have to talk about, process, and there are things that the club can control. But Mikel said it in his recent press conference, you can't control Jesus going a certain way on his knee. You can't control, maybe the Mikel that he talks about, like there's like injury experts will do better than me, but there's certain injuries you can and you can't control. He goes through them, and there's only like 2 really long-term ones that could have happened. He said in the press conference he spoke to a specialist, and I can't remember which, I didn't quite catch which he was referring to, but he said that like one of the injuries that's happened this season could only have happened on that day or something, and I'd be really curious for someone to ask him about that. But like anyway, slightly sidetracked. Point being, like, the control aspect of that I find a bit easier when it's out of our, or it feels like it's out of our control, and when it feels, even just down to things like, and people are going to think I'm making excuses, and I don't care. Liverpool don't have to face Isak when they're facing him. I think there was like some data that came out in terms of the people they haven't had to face. They didn't have to face Ødegaard against us. Didn't have to face Vinny Jr. against Madrid. Like, there's a lot of sort of no Haaland for Man City away, etc., etc. You build up a picture of a season where it feels so much has gone against us. Of course, there's things we can look at, and I'm bored of making that caveat, but that's, I think, what makes it more depressing, because it feels like there's so many external things that you have to take into consideration.
it's like, for example, when we played Newcastle away from home earlier this season in the Premier League, like, as much as I don't want to talk on a podcast about Arsenal losing a game, I'd rather talk about a game like that because we had things in our control and we didn't do well enough, as opposed to like a Brighton away from home in which the entire team there's a sickness bug that goes around that decimates our starting lineup, in which we start Thomas Partey at right back and a midfield trio of Jorginho, Marino, and Rice. And then we have a refereeing decision that influences the game state. Like, I don't want to talk about that. When Arsenal lose a game of football, you don't want to talk about it, but I'd rather talk about it in a situation in which we can control and we can actually criticize what we did, as opposed to looking at external factors. And there's been a lot of those types of games this season. Like West Ham, we did the main pod, right? And obviously injuries, again, is a big caveat, but I didn't mind talking about certain things in that podcast because I felt we could have controlled certain things in terms of what West Ham did in how they applied very similar principles to Bayern Munich last season in being very aggressive on our right-hand side. I don't mind talking about those kind of things because we can kind of control that, even though we're the injuries. So, but generally, there's been a lot of games this season in which we've had to apply caveats and we've had to say this, that, and the other. That's not been in our control, and that's the frustrating thing.
It's so boring, and then everything gets reduced to like, well, you're either making excuses, or there's no context. So, how is that the choice? It's unfair. Cass Barbs became a YouTube member. Thank you so much. You get the data pod on Saturday. You also get a Jamie Gittens scouted tomorrow. If no one's interested in that, George and I recorded that earlier on. Very interesting player. I won't reveal what we concluded, but interesting scouted. So if you want to check that out, you absolutely can. Clivey baby, I would describe this season as clunky, just no rhythm. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And I think this is another thing. I don't think we've got more than 4 wins in a row in any competition, like in all comps. It feels that we've and even the win, like, for example, like that Wolves game, that was in the middle of it, like a quite a good run for us. So we had the Zagreb game where we won, then we beat Wolves, then we beat Girona, then we beat City 5-1. It was in a bit of a decent run for us. That was like 4 wins in a row. But because of the nature of it, no one's going to remember that as like a great game where we, another great win. And everything feels like it's slightly.
But then also, Alex, like after the City game, Havertz goes down. And this is the problem, isn't it? It's like every time you feel you're going to build something, even though we haven't built much in terms of consistency of wins across all competitions, but it feels like every time we're about to build something hits us, and then we go again, and then something hits us. And it feels like that's been the story of the season. And, like last season, like we did the data pod, and I won't reveal too much, but there's a trend, right? When you look at the last 3 seasons and you look strictly at Manchester City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, obviously the last 3 seasons, because that's when Arsenal started to began to being this team that is going for the title.
Yep.
The 3 occasions in which these teams have dropped off, the injuries have been the driver. And there's more context there in that pod.
Right.
It's not exclusive to Arsenal. This does happen. And it is boring, but I'm not afraid to keep talking about it because it is the reality as well, isn't it? So
yeah. I'm gonna come on to the injuries definitely in a second because we've got some data around it. Benji Allen, any positional shifts you boys would like to see experimented with during the remainder of the season? For example, Cal at centre forward, more of Tierney at left wing. Something actually someone commented on an interaction yesterday, which I thought was a good question, was I've said recently quite a lot that I don't feel like Mikel puts players in positions that they're uncomfortable with. And I think I probably haven't explained myself well enough because the person made a good point. They were like, well, he's moved Ben White around. He's done these sorts of things. What I mean is sometimes a game calls for a centre forward to hold the ball up. He would never ask Havertz to do that. Sometimes a game calls for our wingers to be running in behind. He'd never ask Trossard to do that. And one of my frustrations is I think that there are times this season, whatever he's asking someone to do, it's always in the remit of their skills. So maybe he is asking Partey to be a right back, but Partey can play right back. He's not as quick. But what he wouldn't do with Partey at right back is say, give me a sprint. Give me one overlapping run when it suits it. And I've given loads of examples this season of, like, for example, there was like a Havertz. There was like the most centre forward run you absolutely have to do, and he just comes and drops the feet. So that's what I mean by that. Just to sort of give that. Calla at centre forward, more of Tierney at left wing? I don't really know.
I would like to see Arsenal at times going from now to the end of the season, try and replicate that Emil Smith Rowe, Kieran Tierney dynamic through the left hand side in certain situations with Tierney. Like I'd like to see that personally. It gave us a lot of success.
Martinelli?
With I know people won't want to hear it, but Sterling.
Okay.
Yeah, with Sterling, genuinely, I know it's not a favourable option, but I've been consistent on this. With Mikel Merino, I like the idea at centre forward in certain game states. I don't like it from the start. I really don't. And I feel sorry for him because he's never played in that role before. And there's a massive difference. People don't realise, right? So, right, Merino starts left central midfield normally, right? As his main position. You are marked by a midfielder most of the time. You're marked by one of the pivot players. You move to centre forward, you're marked by two players, two centre backs. It's a massive difference. Like, that's just one of the big differences. And you see it at times, even when we're going long, Marino's not really able to hold it up because it's a completely different role that he's been tasked. I like Merino at centre forward in the context of our situation right now, where we have pegged teams back and it's about effectively adding more chaos in the box. Not in build-up and asking them to do certain things. It's when we're in the final third and we're looking to generate something. And I don't think Merino can... We're not going to be in that sort of game state for the entirety of 90 minutes. It tends to be later on, especially with the types of teams that we're facing. Now, Sterling has been awful. I'm not going to hide away from that. But I'm a massive believer in trying to maximize your resources, even if the resources are not good. Because then at least you can say, and we don't know what happens behind the scenes, right, in terms of training. So there's a lot of things that I'm saying now could be answered, but I just don't have that information. But I want us to keep going with this Sterling idea until he leaves. And if he keeps stinking up the gaff, then so be it. At least we know we've done everything we can to give him the opportunity to thrive. And I don't even think we have done that personally in terms of on the pitch. Like, even though he has been poor, I think we can still do more. And I really want to see him through the left. It really annoys me when he puts him on the right, because every time I see Sterling on the right, I think, okay, it's just not going to do anything. I mean, even on the left, you think he's probably not going to do anything, but there's more of a likelihood of him doing something through the left. And these are the things that I do get frustrated at. But then it is hard for Mikel as well, because the resources are just... So this
is kind of, and George and I were talking in this interaction, and George was offering really valid criticism of the way we played yesterday.
Yeah,
but talking about Tierney's positioning and whatever. And I was like, I don't actually disagree with you on this game, but this is all like the much bigger factor here is this is downstream of reduced options. So would he be putting Tierney on? If we had Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, and Havertz available? No. So it's like, it's really hard, and then you can have a conversation about that. But for me, it just feels...
He's trying, isn't he? He is trying.
He's trying.
Like Zinchenko coming on, he's never put Zinchenko in that role since he's came to the club. Nominally, he's never done it.
It's something.
So he's trying. Yeah.
I do actually agree. The only place that I trust, because he's not going to be riding contact as much, is in a bit of broken play. Just quickly on something you said about Merino. Broken play versus let's say unstructured play versus structured play is a very big thing. And Merino came on in a very unstructured game state against Leicester, and that's why he thrived. It's a very structured game against Nottingham Forest for 90 minutes. It's a very structured game, and they knew exactly what they were doing. That comment that Nuno made, I didn't understand why it made such a big imprint. We don't have a striker. That's the whole point. But I think people take it as almost like it was like an insult. I was like, he's just stating a fact. We don't have a striker. But I think what you're saying about Sterling is right, because the one place that when we did the scouted on him, actually, the one place that I thought he could work is dribbling on the left, getting us up the pitch, because he's really good at that. He's really good at that, and being the person on the inside. The question is, why was that the guy we signed as a winger?
Absolutely. But the thing is, we have him now, so let's use him. That's my point. Let's use him, and if he keeps playing poorly, then we as fans can say, Mikel obviously didn't want him. He's tried his absolute best with it, and it's not worked. Sterling has just been has not been good enough, and that's a poor look on the player. But right now, it's kind of like, it's certainly a poor look on the player, but people can have the argument that, well, have we really done enough to maximize Sterling? And I don't think we have. And to this point, like, you can't drop Trossard for Sterling. I said it like when we had the Havertz and Martinelli injuries. I said, right, we have 3 attackers, right? Ranieri, Trossard, Sterling. Let's try and make it work with this 3, and let's keep going with it. And then if things don't work in game, then we change it. And I actually think Trossard, Sterling, I wanted to kind of, what I felt could happen with that dynamic through the left is similar to Jesus and Martinelli in 22-23. Obviously, not to the same level, but that level of fluidity, 2 players who can come in, come out. I think that could have been something that we could have done in the last 2 games. But we've just not been able to see it because Mourinho's played 290 minutes at centre forward. So yeah, like there are things I think Mikel could have done more in, but then I kind of like asked myself today, it's like, yes, if we could have changed this thing, would it have changed the result? Maybe, but it's hard, isn't it? It's not easy. So.
And I don't. I'm not dismissing the Sterling thing or what George said last night or any solution anyone brings forward. I'm just like, hopefully reminding people how much it is in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like this in the grand scheme of what's going on. So how much you want to use it to bash Mikel? Well, he's not using his resources properly. Look at his resources, and properly. Well, we're talking minor tweaks here, you know. And I think I'd much rather look at stuff like why did we sign Sterling? You know, those bigger questions. Jack Cav, thank you so much for your super chat. Really kind of you. Let's go on and make some excuses, Rohan. Let's do it. So this is from Scott on X. Hang on. Where are we? Here we are. Okay. So this is what Scott put out earlier. Actually, before I bring this up, I want to have a serious conversation about injuries. And I'm just not entertaining either binary of this argument. I reject the binary conversations.
Yeah.
They are everything is on the injuries, and we could not have possibly done better this season. And injuries aren't an excuse. Stop making excuses. Both of those ends of the argument, you can disagree with me if you want, I think are just fallacy child. They're conversations I'm not interested in having. The conversation I'm interested in having is how much it's impacted us. What can we do to stop this? What do we in our control? Is it profiles? Is it the internal staff that we need to maybe be asking questions of potentially, you know, with very little information, but do we? Is it Mikel's training methods? Is it and then how much does this affect things? The grey, that's the conversation to be having. It does affect things, but no one is saying it's the only reason we are where we are. I hate this, but I just reject it. So let's not even go there, right? So this is some data from Scott Willis that you put out a little bit earlier. Now, Transfermarkt has decided what the value lost is. Whether you agree with that or not is an aspect of this that is part of this, and a lot of this might be to do with contract value. I also think, like, for example, I would put a Tomiyasu way higher for value lost, considering the impact on the specific scenarios this season. Partey at the back post against Villa wouldn't be there. Situation against Liverpool wouldn't be there. So he's way higher, but maybe a Jesus who might be worth 40 or 50 million. I don't know how much he's. It's all just what I mean.
It's like with Tomiyasu as well. It's kind of like, you know, the load management, right? During Timber, I think, has been consistently outstanding this season defensively, and he's also given us good quality on the ball. But I think his level has dropped on the ball over the past few weeks, personally. And there have been other stages in this season which Tomiyasu could have really helped us on that side. And I mean, the record of Thomas Partey at right back, and that's not Thomas Partey's fault in a sense of him, you know, being in that position because we just had to use him there. That's where it's kind of like, if that player was here, we could have kept other players more fresh, and we could have been able to combat this game in a better way and stuff. Yeah.
Just for those on audio, so let me just go through this. So Arsenal are top, according to this data, which is data via Who Scored, updated through February 26th. This is all done on Scott, so you can check this out at Scott J. Willis on X. The most transfer market value lost across the season. So in terms of the total injuries, it's all sort of, and Scott kind of explains it, how it's all worked out. But supposedly Arsenal lost the most transfer market value across the season. We have the rank number 1 for value of injuries. We have the rank value number 1 for number of value number 10 for injuries faced. I think we're somewhere like second or third for total injuries. There's also like opponent injury face as well. But regardless, I think what this data shows us is by a certain metric, because of the value of the likes of Ødegaard and Saka and so on and so forth, the value of the squad that Arsenal have lost across the season is huge. Now, of course, that is going to be the case because, we have a higher value squad, right? But when you compare us to the likes of Liverpool or Tottenham or Man United, or whoever it might be, we've lost an incredible amount of value across the season. And I think it's fair to say this is a massive thing, as you were talking about earlier with the data pod. This is a huge factor for this season. Huge.
And it's the same in previous seasons where teams have had injuries. They've not been able to sustain a level of performance. And I do want to get into the things that we can do better, which we'll get into in a bit. But keeping focus on this, and I mentioned this in the data pod, right, as well. Not in data pod, sorry, in our main pod that we did last week or this week. Go and look at every single team that has won the Premier League and the circumstances of that season and what players they had available. Arsenal, Thierry Henry, Man United, Rooney, Man United towards the end of Fergie's reign, Van Persie, Kevin De Bruyne for City, Salah for Liverpool, Hazard for Chelsea when they won the league under Conte and Mourinho. The one of the biggest stories of Premier League history of Leicester winning it with Jamie Vardy and Riyad Mahrez. The star players and the players who add the most value to their squad are available consistently throughout the entirety of the season. That is the only way you're going to be able to win something, especially in today's day. And that's why I always go back to this. There's always this thing about, tactics, quality. At the top level, at the very top, tactics will never defeat quality. It never will. It doesn't. Because, I made this comparison where you could be a coach who is tactically astute, but you may not be the best. You're not in the top percentile of tacticians out there. But if you've got the players, the best players, you are going to be able to topple those other managers who are tactically better than you because the quality is going to be able to dictate proceedings. And that's what happens at the top level. And we've not been able to have that, and that's massive context. And I don't think it's fair to just ignore that, and this kind of proves it as well. Look at the teams who are with us in terms of injuries and value added. Look where they're sitting in the table.
And City is second, and look at the season they've had. It's and this is another graph here. So this is sorted by total injuries. Arsenal 5th behind Brentford, Brighton, Tottenham, and Wolves, and I think all those teams have arguably underperformed this season. In terms of average injuries, we're not far behind them. In terms of injuries faced, there's different numbers as well, and average injuries faced sort of per team. I think everyone's sort of in a similar camp there. Moving the full conversation on then, because I don't think anyone sensible is debating it's not a factor, and I think most people would say it's a huge factor. How do we avoid this? How do we stop this happening again? Because I'll go back to a number of things. Something, and I'm not an expert, so I can only go off what those who are in the know say. What Mikel said about lack of training is a big concern to me. And then I'd look at the size of the squad. I think someone said to me that we didn't actually go into the season with all of our squad slots filled.
No, we went light.
That is, to me, unforgivable.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's unforgivable. You can't go into a season light. You can't. So we need to address that 100%. I will say, it's very easy to sit here after the season when everything's gone wrong and say that. I wasn't saying it at the time, but we can learn our lesson now, right? And I think in terms of the players themselves, look, Saka hasn't fallen over before this season. I'm looking at him in terms of injuries. The Tomiyasu's, if we think about the sort of the perennially injured players from Arsenal over the last couple of seasons, probably Tomiyasu is the only player, maybe Jesus. So the only player, but Jesus is harsh because it's just an action and just happens like that. Everyone else has been injured. Mikel Merino, just one training session, it happens. Ødegaard hasn't been injured. The likes of Kivior and Zinchenko, who've had their issues in the past, have been available. Ben White's never been injured before. Probably the only person to have a conversation about is Tomiyasu, but even with Tomiyasu, I think there's a very special circumstance there based on his story.
But then isn't this kind of like a wider topic then? It's not like what you're seeing. I think the Rodri injury, George mentioned this, and George is in much better in the know in this regard, in that the Rodri injury should have been like alarm bells to everyone, because this is a guy who is one of the ultimate professionals, doesn't get injured, fantastic professional, always available, world class, and he goes down. Isn't that like an alarm? And this is why I think this season that we are at risk of damaging the product with the number of games that are being that our players are being exposed to. And you can see the number of injuries that are happening across the entirety of the Premier League. And this isn't just exclusive to Arsenal. And that's where I think maybe it's also a wider issue in which we can't control. Yes, we could add more players, and that certainly will help. More players means you've got more opportunities to rotate, something Mikel needs to be better at anyway. But it gives you the opportunity to manage the load of players who go into that red zone. But maybe there is something that we can't control as well.
Well, for sure. But my point was more around, I don't think we're looking at the players who got injured this season and saying, oh, it's classic, them again. Do you know what I mean? We're not really. And I suppose that's what you're saying with Rodri.
Yeah.
So there maybe are alarm bells, but I think the alarm bells are more around looking into what happened this season. But also, mate, like, we sat here on a bloody podcast. There's people who are doctors and paid to look into this stuff, who will be looking into this stuff. And it's not to say they're getting the right answers. I don't know. But it's just positioning ourselves as fans and saying, okay, I don't think you've made the same mistake over and over again with the same player and given him another contract and the guy just can't get fit. That's not what I think has happened this season. The things I'm looking at moving forward are Saka's load and how we manage that. But also, and for example, that makes the Raheem Sterling buy even worse.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because you haven't been able to manage the load properly. And I think the Saka and Martinelli ones, reading between the lines, are load related in terms of hamstrings going or whatever. Like that does make sense to me. So that's something moving forward. But I'm looking at Havertz. Havertz has never been injured. I think his load again is something I'd be looking at. I hope we just learn the lessons from this season. I think what happens is we think about all the injuries and mistakes we made before in terms of profiles and stuff happening and sticking with players for too long, etc. I don't think we've made quite a fresh set of mistakes this season, which is maybe more frustrating. But I do feel that, and I think maybe the unforgivables in this season are not doing what we needed to do in the January window to address that. I think maybe that makes it even worse.
And I think, I've not managed to catch much of the timeline today, but I did see something about David Ornstein in a Q&A in regards to Ollie Watkins. Don't know if you've caught that as well. Yeah. In terms of I think he said I might be wrong, but there were in a Q&A David Ornstein did, he goes on and says Mikel wanted Ollie Watkins badly. It's like, we needed players, we needed support. And
David Ornstein on this week's Q&A, he is a hugely influential voice, of course, but not the only one. Arteta wanted Watkins, however, he doesn't control the purse strings, and rightly so. He's the coach/manager.
Well, doesn't that surely answer the idea that Mikel Arteta didn't want anyone? Didn't want to bring?
No, come on. No serious person thought he didn't want a player. No one.
Had to get that in though.
So yeah, it's frustrating. And ultimately, again, I know I say this all the time, but the lack of information we have to be able to be making such sweeping comments is very hard. I don't know what I don't know what the load is. Even this week, right? So I think it was it not Twanzebe? Who was on the overlap with that HTO guy?
I think it was Twanzebe.
Was it Twanzebe? I can't remember exactly who it was, but he was talking about like
Zone
playing
6.
in zones. Actual Twanzebe was talking about physical exertion. He said, you're stuck in zone 6 all the time. I was like, what's zone 6? And it turns out it's this thing about exertion, which someone sent to me. Where are we?
It's a chart, isn't there?
Yeah, so it's this chart here. So it's all about sort of, probably, where were you, do you reckon, on your run this afternoon? So yeah, zone 2 is list cardio that most of us would do at the gym, for example, a Stairmaster or a bike. And if you're in zone 6 playing Premier League, and zone 2 is cardio at the gym. Do you know what I mean? Like, you really, the lack of information certainly I have on this stuff leads to limitations on what I can say. But I don't see, at least from my limitations, the same mistakes being made again and again. We haven't been as inactive in the market as we have this year before. We haven't. Yeah. It was this year was bad. Saka hasn't fallen over before. Havertz hasn't fallen over before. Martinelli hasn't fallen over before. We haven't signed Raheem Sterling and it's gone that bad before. So as long as we learn the lessons, Tomiyasu, it was a very unique scenario. Ben White, very unique scenario. Not trying to make excuses, just trying to give context. I think it's a unique year, and then it's how you learn from it. And this is my position generally on this season, though, mate, as well. I'm really frustrated by this season, of course. But I don't think anything we've done is like same old. The only same old Arsenal is the result. I think we've made quite a different set of mistakes. And then it's how you react. That's what I think. I think it's all very well for us all to sit here and say, we knew we needed another forward last time. No, we didn't. I sat here on a live. I remember being sat here on a live stream and saying, I wish we'd done more, but I think we've got enough. Always you want more. If you offer me Isak, I want Isak. But I thought Arsenal had done enough last year. Turns out we didn't. The question is how we react.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's a lesson for a lot of people, including myself as well. You know, when we got the Raheem Sterling loan, I looked at a lot of positives with that deal in isolation about, you know, the finances and, you know, an opportunity late in the market. And I was quite happy with it. It's not worked out in that sense. Yeah. But I stand by, you know, we still can do more with Sterling. But there's a lot of lessons to be learned. And then it all comes back to your levels of patience. It all comes back to that. Like, you feel like the project is stagnating and you're seeing mistakes that you believe were apparent in the window, you might not have the patience anymore to keep pursuing this project. And you're entitled to that opinion. But I think, you know, a manager who is still very, very early into management has the opportunity to make these mistakes. And also, by the way, you know, in terms of the summer window, we don't even know if this was Mikel's decision. Well, I'm pretty adamant it wasn't Mikel's decision to not get a forward signing in. You know, I'm pretty sure he wanted that, especially with his comments about, as George alludes to a lot in terms of box efficiency. He's mentioned that many times. So there's a lot of learning curves for sure. But I think this summer window is a really critical one because I think a lot of people, including myself, you know, I'm in general in life, like not just in football, in life. Like I'm willing to give people chances. And like we said it on that live with the January window and how it was a red mark on the Kroenke's time at Arsenal since they gained full ownership in 2018. And it was a massive gut punch for me because it came across as them writing the season off with what we did, which was nothing. But with the good work that they have done since gaining full ownership, I'm willing to see what they do in the summer. You know, or if they don't do anything in the summer that pretty much everyone, that's the funny thing. I think you mentioned it's like everybody knows what Arsenal need now.
It's like the one positive from this season is there's no doubt. There is no doubt. And
it's like everybody knows what we need, you know, and it's like we need attackers. Yes, we might need a left back here. We might need something here as well. But it's time now to not think about, you know, trying to address this player at left back because he can give us this dynamic. No, just go and get top attacking players. You know, and that can wait. That can wait afterwards. We might still have that weakness at left back, let's say, for example, that X can't do this, so we needed to recruit that. But I can tell you for a fact that the driver is not going to be that specific tactical tweak. The driver is going to be the quality across our front line. You see the lineup come out. Arsenal release it an hour and 15 minutes before kickoff. I want to see a front three that poses actual threat, like that scares teams. And right now, Arsenal don't scare teams. That's what it is.
Yeah, you're on the McDonald's Wi-Fi, I think.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Chuck them out. Chuck them out. And come back.
No, I think you're fine. Yeah, it's abundantly clear. And a couple of people coming back to what I was saying about the summer and being happy. I'm never. No one's ever happy with. You want your club to go and sign Messi. My point was, I think everyone went, I think we could have done more, but like, and you know, you obviously you wish that you're right. You sorting your Wi-Fi out. What are you streaming in the background? Streaming the cricket.
Got nothing.
Okay. Like I think everyone would have wanted, you know, if you'd asked me last summer, you can have Isak, yes or no, of course you do it. But you go into a season thinking, okay, I think we'll have enough. I think we will have enough because we had Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, Havertz, Sterling, We hadn't even found Wanyeri at that point. We had Wanyeri. We had Trossard. Who else am I missing? 6 attackers. And also in the we had how many defenders and how many midfielders. We just signed in that headspace. We just signed 2, sort of floor raising players in Calafiori and Marino. It's very easy after the fact to say, well, clearly it wasn't enough. You didn't know that. You didn't know that at the time, so you can't.
It's also really unfair as well, right? I think it's quite unfair. So, like for example, Calafiori now. The problem is like because Arsenal didn't do what they were supposed to do, according to a lot of people, including myself and yourself now, looking in hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
So every time Calafiori makes an error or an action that is poor, people will bring back to what Arsenal did in the summer window, and they'll look at Calafiori as a poor player because Arsenal didn't buy X, Y, or Z. And I think it's really unfair analysis on the players that we have signed. So. In Calafiori Marino, so yeah.
Rasmus said, apologies I missed this earlier, what players do you think the club will sign in the summer? Not who you want us to sign, but who you think we'll bring in. Good question. Keep up the good work. I think...
Well, we know who... Well, Zubimendi.
Yeah, I think we'll get Zubimendi. Honestly, I think we'll get another left-back. Because Tierney's going, and I think one of Zinchenko or Kivi will go. So I think we'll get another left back. I don't know who that is. And I don't suspect it will be it might be a Jarell Hato. But that's not the sort of profile I want, to be honest. But it'd probably be something like that. But I don't have a name for you. I'm sorry. Where are Newcastle?
Yes.
No, and I don't just mean Isak.
Anthony Gordon.
Yeah. I think if Newcastle don't get Champions League, I think we might do like a Cesco Gordon. Something like that.
Gordon's top.
Gordon is top. And I think I'm right in saying, let me just check this before I say this confidently. His numbers out of possession are incredible. Like
he's a very intelligent footballer as well. Have you seen him how he conducts himself in like immediate post-match press conferences as well? Like he's really switched on. And there's only one player who's actually had significant success against Timber this season. It's Anthony Gordon.
I think he's really good for what this. And again, it's about do we adapt our left-hand side or whatever? It's going to change around it. It's going to adapt. But I wouldn't be surprised if we went for like a Gordon, a Premier League. I think if we're signing, for example, Cesco from abroad, we'll go and get Premier League proven talent alongside it. I think if we can get Isak, we will. And you will owe me £20.
What was it again? Was it £20?
You will owe me £20. Where is it? £20, 13th of Feb. If Newcastle don't get UCL and Isak signs, Alex versus not Rohan. There you go.
And it's got to be this summer, yeah? So the deadline is this summer.
Starting 23-24, we had 9 forwards, 10 if you include Vieira. Starting 24-25, we had 6, and then Wanyeri became a forward. Not acceptable. Dane, not to thank you for the super chat. I don't think that's true.
9 forwards.
I don't think we had 9 forwards. Smith Rowe. Okay, if you're including Smith Rowe and then Nelson and Nketiah, but then we had 6. But then if we're including like Smith Rowe as a forward, where are we? We also the club knew about Wanyeri. Do you know what I mean? We may not have seen him, but the club would have considered Wanyeri forward. So I think we have to say the club thought they were going into the season with Wanyeri, Saka, Jesus, Martinelli, Trossard, Havertz, and Sterling. That's 7. And you don't need 9. Look at how many minutes Vieira and Nelson played last season.
Well, this is the argument that I made at the summer as well. I don't like keeping players for the sake of keeping them as well, because I think you're just. This is where you have that empathy side of things as well. Like I was so happy Reece Nelson got a loan, even though I backed the talent so much, because Reece Nelson was never getting an opportunity at Arsenal. He was just never getting a chance, And then we saw Smith Rowe as well used sparingly. Vieira was used sparingly. Just like if you've got these players and you're not going to use them, get rid of them. There's no point keeping them, And this is actually a good criticism of Mikel as well, because last season, I sit in the camp of I think Arsenal were very fortunate injury-wise last season, and they had really good luck there. Obviously, you could allude to Thomas Partey being out for the entirety of the season, barring the last 10 games. Timber was out for the whole season, but overall, we had good luck with the injuries, and we got very close. There's always that talk about the cup performances, and I've said this many times. Mikel Arteta needs to do better in the cups. It's facts, absolute facts. It is a problem, and there's a trend there. But in terms of the league, we had good fortune there, and we ran close. And he didn't rotate the squad enough, though, as well. That was one of the criticisms. So now what I'm looking at is if we're going to go for a bigger squad in the summer, all eyes are on Mikel on a specific aspect of squad rotation. Like this season, I think he's done really well in terms of navigating through the league campaign and getting Arsenal to a position that is still very respectable with the turbulence that we've endured. But he's been forced into making changes in terms of rotation, hasn't he? Like next season, it'll be interesting when we have, let's say, a bigger squad, which is what he's alluding to, and being able to keep players fresh.
Yep.
That's where it's going to be on him, because I don't think he did it well enough in 2023-24, even though we operated at a 100-point pace post 2024. So, yeah,
for sure. Anurag says, "Hi, I'm from February 2026. It's been a difficult season. How are we supposed to compete with City, who have Rodri back and spent £500 million in 2025? Anyways, Pep is leaving, so next year is our chance. Just kidding. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Anurag." Yeah, look, there has to come a cut-off point, and I think this summer with that big win now spend, as long as there isn't, if there's the same injury situation, at which point I will start looking at like this is a big concern within the club, because it's happened again 2 seasons in a row, and that's not acceptable. So there needs to be some kind of review around that. So there would I want not that you want heads to roll in that sense, but you'd be looking at some serious changes at the club if the injury situation repeated, or the same thing repeated, having had this this summer window to buy win now players. That's my cutoff point. And I've been very clear about that.
Do you know what it is as well? It's like, so again, I have a lot of patience for Mikel, but players are not idiots, right? If Arsenal don't win trophies, players will leave. It is part and parcel of the game. And that is the worry that I do have. Like, I'll maintain that. Like, William Saliba was an Arsenal fan through and through, right? That doesn't matter. No. If Arsenal do not win trophies, football is not a long career. The world is his oyster, he will leave, and it's the same with a player. So it's all good me being here and I've got time for Mikel, etc. I back the idea. I look at the game model. Yes, we need to add certain flavors in specific areas, but I have a lot of time for him. Players could look at it differently. The longer it goes in which Arsenal don't win stuff. So it's a really interesting one.
We have one more year with Saliba.
Yeah, I think
we've got one more year. Yeah. I think we'll be fine this summer. I don't think anything will happen.
And do you know what?
But we've got one more year.
If we don't win anything next season, fair enough. He's given it his all, hasn't he?
What would that be for? If it was next year, so that would be since 22-23, 4 seasons.
4 seasons. And do you know what it is? I hate it when people will go with the narrative. Well, Saliba was part of a team that didn't win anything, but was Saliba the reason Arsenal didn't win anything? No. William Saliba, Gabriel have not been the reasons for Arsenal not winning anything so far in the league, So it's that up. The thumbnail check. We haven't done it.
Thumbnail check. We forgot. This is one of the options. Me as some kind of wood chopper. I think that's you.
What?
You're in there somewhere. Ford has sent me I never understand this. Ford, if you're in the chat, I don't understand, because some things he sends me have got you in.
And
I found it. I know where it is.
I can't see it.
There you are.
Where?
There.
Are you?
That's you.
Yeah, there it is.
And
my
then
thing
this
just
is
lagged. That's why.
Then this is Chris Wood on the tree.
He did absolutely nothing yesterday, barring that one half chance.
Also, can you leave and come back and turn on echo cancellation? Because I can just hear myself the whole time.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Cool. Right, cheers. And then the other one is this one, which is pretty funny, I would say. Toothless. But then the one tooth at the it does have is again Rohan. I think I like Toothless mainly because it features me more. And then a little plaster on the what is that? A dolphin? Is that a fish? I don't know what that is. What do you think of that, Rohan?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. What do you think of that one?
I do like. Oh, what? Why?
I like that.
Why am
I
I
like
in
that one.
mouth?
There you are, mate. The hidden Rohan. I think I prefer Toothless.
Yeah, I do prefer that one.
Yeah, we're having Toothless. I don't know what is that a shark?
Yeah, it's not a dolphin, is it? Oh my god, I've had an absolute nightmare there.
No, I don't know what it is. I prefer Toothless. Ford is cooked again. Out of 10?
Yeah, I prefer Toothless.
Out of 10?
8.5. 8.5.
I'm giving that a 9 because it features me. It's Sharky. Sharky, mate. Do we want to talk about Forest? I don't want to.
Tail.
Oh,
Short
Jesus
tail.
Christ. You're on the McDonald's Wi-Fi again.
Am I?
No, you're right. You're back. Do you want to talk Forest or no? I don't. Genuinely, I do not.
I've got one sentence.
Oh, go on.
My hopes of winning that game went down the drain when Calafiori came off at halftime. He was the only player. He was one of the only players who was generating something. Was he not?
If that's not an indictment of Arsenal's attacking options this season, when our left fullback, who should be playing centre back, came off, I was worried. Oh, right, okay.
No, it's quite bad, isn't it?
Oh, Christ. Right.
My Wi-Fi is good as well. I've checked it.
I've just banned that person in the chat, by the way, everyone.
Well, yeah.
Just annoying. Annoying.
Yeah.
Arsenal plan to appoint a new sporting director next month and are in the process of whittling down candidates before their final decision is reached, says David Ornstein. The position has been vacant, blah, 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 blah. Jason Ito remains an option for the full-time post and is joined by the likes of Dan Ashworth, Andrea Berta, Roberto Olabe, and Thiago Scuro, among those to have been discussed internally or held talks. The process was supported by a recruitment firm initially, helping form, assess, and reduce a long list prior to a smaller group of individuals advancing to interviews with the club hierarchy. You can all read, but just for those of you on audio. Arsenal's ownership, KSE, is heavily involved in the matter, and an ultimate call will not be made without its consultation, approval, and sign-off. Amid continuing deliberations, Arsenal are yet to offer the job to any contender, and Paris Saint-Germain football advisor Luis Campos, who has been linked to the post by Alex Moneypenny from the Cannon Podcast, is not in the frame. The four options are Dan Ashworth, Jason Ito, Andrea Berta, and Roberto Olabe. So if you don't know who they are, I think Olabe we've spoken before. He's at Sociedad. The Andrea Berta guy is obviously is from Atletico Madrid. Jason Ito we know, and Ashworth is obviously from the Man United situation.
Where was Ashworth from again? Before, was it Brighton?
I think West Brom. I could be wrong. No, so yeah, he was at Brighton. Then he went to Newcastle. Then he went to Man United. But I think he was at West Brom at one point. Maybe he played at West Brom.
The big one is Brighton, isn't it? Like that's a massive the success he's had there with what they did.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was an assistant coach at West Brom.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Like, is that usually something that happens? I don't know. Like, does a sporting director start off as an assistant manager, or does he go that way? Like,
he played non-league,
yeah,
and then he went to West Brom to assist the youth team, and then he went to the FA. Then he went to Brighton. Then he went to Newcastle. Then he went to United. But yeah, I mean, I've my only red flag. The only thing I really know about Dan Ashworth is he suggested Southgate. So, but apparently he's a bit sort of less data-y, which I kind of don't hate. Someone who's a bit more sort of traditional to be another voice in the room. But
Sanielli.
Yeah, the little black book of contacts. I know, but someone who's worked extensively in the, I'm not going to say. I don't. To be honest, we'll have a proper pod on at some point. We'll do some research. Probably George and I will come to that at some point and do like a proper breakdown of each person. But yeah, anyone that sticks out to you?
Just don't know enough, But like, I did mention many times, like, it has to be someone experienced, mate. Like, we can't go down this Jason Ato route. This is actually a big month for the club, March, because that's when it said, it's a decision will be made. This, I think, could put more optimistic fans on edge with the outcome of this, because I think it needs to be someone who can challenge Mikel. Can't be a contrarian, but can't also be a yes man. Needs to be someone who aligns with his vision, but also has the willingness to say if something he doesn't agree with and saying that is the wrong call. We need someone bold like that, and someone like Jason Ato, he's getting praised for doing absolutely nothing in the January window. So can't be having someone like that.
You know what I feel bad about with Jason Ato? He might be right for the job, and he might be. We obviously hear good stuff about him and so on and so forth. It would just be the wrong message, I think, right now to appoint him from internally, even if he's the perfect person. I think we have to get ourselves, as I said before, one of my only prerequisite things for this is someone who can get us in those big conversations. And he just doesn't have the experience in football or hasn't had the posts in football in order to be able to do that. And I think he, maybe a couple of years ago, if Eddie had left, it might be like, well, okay, everything's doing this on the pitch with Mikel, so maybe we just carry on with what's going on. But right now, we need to take that step to become serious. As I've said before, where's Musiala's next contract? Where's Joshua Kimmich's next contract? Where's Florian Wirtz's next contract? It's that stuff.
It's that top tier talent, isn't it? It's not settling for less, and that's why I think we need someone big. The Bayer Leverkusen one as well. I don't know what his name is. I think it's Simon something. There was a really good article on him, and their rebuild has been fantastic. Yeah, and their rebuild has been fantastic as well. So maybe that's someone to look at as well. But it all points towards Alabi, is it? Alabe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it all points to that in terms of the links, doesn't it? With Subamendi and Juan Garcia. Like, it seems like that's going to be the case. And I'll be interested. Like, maybe it's a bit lazy. I don't want to do any research on this until the actual person's appointed. Because it's like, I can't be bothered to research every single...
Yeah, but also, it's just, it's been narrowed down.
Yeah.
And, we'll just find out when we find out, right? So it's not,
Not Jason Ato, please. I'll be so angry if it's Jason Ato.
You hate him. You Jason Hato him.
Jason Hato. God.
Can you check the private chat, please? Thanks, babe. Okay. Shu says next season clubs that play in the summer will suffer. Yeah, another aspect of this. The Euros, we had a lot of participants in the Euros, which was a shame. And yeah, there's like a Club World Cup next summer, which I just, it's so much football, mate. It's so much football. And I'm glad we're not participating, which is a good thing. Dane Howard says 23-24 forwards. Kai, Bakaya, Martinelli. Oh, sorry, it was 9 forwards, not 10, but letting 4 go and bringing Sterling. Well, 9 was too many. The club also knew, as I said, about Ethan and would have known he can play in this position. So like he was training with the first team since he was 15. So the club knew that he was going to be someone that was involved this season. So I think realistically, the ones they didn't replace were Eddie and Smith Rowe. Mm-hmm. Because Vieira, you can imagine that as Ethan, and Sterling, you can imagine that as Reece Nelson. So we chopped 2 out of 9, which it's very, I don't know. I just think it's very easy to sit here and say we didn't have enough numbers. If you said to me last time we got 7 players for the 3 forward positions, I might have even said that's too much. It happens. I don't know. I just can't get too frustrated about that. Let's do this. We need to rank Mikel's seasons. Have you turned me down your ears?
Yeah, I don't know. How do you do that?
Just literally in your headphones.
Oh, in my headphones.
Yeah. So just turn me down a little bit because I can hear myself feedbacking. Sorry, these amateurs I have to work with, guys. Amateurs. You can't even hear me because I feel bad now. Oh, yeah, I feel bad. I've been slagging you off with. I felt bad. I was slagging you off, and then you took your headphones out.
I didn't hear anything.
It looked like I was taking the mic.
Is that better?
I feel bad. Yeah, much better. Thank you so much. Yeah, very good. Handa Versal says, excellent show. I like this guy. We DM occasionally. Nice guy. Paul Moon says, sorry, we're over an hour in. Where is the neck analysis chat? That's true. How can I see your...
okay.
Can I see your posture?
Yeah. Oh, God, I'm like cross-legged right now. So...
Stay to the side. Yeah, I think it's pretty aligned. It does look. What thoughts on my neck alignment?
Yeah, beard's looking good.
It's getting there. I've still just got a little bit of. It's still just a little bit patchy in here, but it's a lot. It's a lot more.
It's like fading nicely.
Yeah, it's a lot thicker than it used to be, guys.
Looks clean.
Can you get anything on here? I
can, but it just gets unbearable. So I just trim it like down a lot.
Unbearable.
Yeah.
Ultra Pro Gamer says Berta is very good. Look at his Atletico transfers. Yeah, he's had some good. He's had some big sales, and I mean, I look at the Alvarez purchase for that sort of money.
Wait, my posture's fine. I'm pretty sure my posture's fine. Don't know if I was sitting properly. Sorry.
AJ Envoy says, I've seen that beard in person. Elite. When did you see my beard? When have you seen my beard, AJ? That's stressing me out. Do you know what? I got recognised near my house the other day.
Really?
That was stressful.
Yeah.
It was a lovely conversation. The guy was really nice, but I was like, we're a little bit too close to my house. Like, do you know what I mean?
And that is why I've got a dog, in case that happens ever for me.
With AJ, I probably do remember you, but I don't remember you being, frankly, quite an attractive woman. Or maybe you were, in which case, hello. Christmas.
I feel like he needs to add a bit more.
Can you add some context? You're making me look like a dick for forgetting you, and you've got a fake picture, and you're called AJ Envoy, and you're expecting me to remember. Oh, it's Sade, the artist. Tava Ruiz, minoxidil to help the beard, bruh. AJ says I don't think I met Sade. Is it Sade or Sade or?
I don't know. I haven't got a clue.
What does she do? What does Sade do? She did a good song. She did a good song. She had a big song, like one big song that did really well. I can't remember what it was.
No idea.
You know which one it is. Sade music.
Oh, let me see.
Oh, By Your Side. No, Smooth Operator. By Your Side. I love that song because the 1975 did a cover of it, and then I found out. Ah, I do remember you, sir. I do remember you. I met this guy at the Albert Hall. He showed me to my seat. He told me where the toilets were and showed me where my seats were. Very nice guy.
Yeah, there you go. Now you need to apologise to him.
I'm very sorry for thinking you were Sade. I still don't know how to say that. Right, we're going to do some tier rankings. Dane, perfect timing. He's got a little scorecard for us.
Oh, nice.
We're going to tier rank. I'm still very. I feel like I'm still very loud in your ears.
Let me change it. Let me notch it down.
Are you deaf?
How about now?
That probably should be. Yeah, there we go. Oh no, I can't say. Anyway, whatever. We'll sort it for next time. We've got a tier list. We have 1920, 2021, 21-22, 22-23. Have a guess. 23-24 and 24-25. And we're going to rank them by season. I'm glad you're here, actually, Rotoham. About to call you Mikkel. Because you have a much better memory than me. Much better memory. We're going to rank best, second best, upper middle, lower middle, second worst, worst for those seasons. If it helps anyone in terms of league positions, 1920 was 8th, 2021 was 8th, 21-22 was 5th. 22-23 was 2nd. 23-24 was 2nd. And it's looking like 24-25 might be 9th. 2nd, sorry. Let's start with 19-20. Obviously, we won an FA Cup that year.
Mm-hmm.
And but also Mikel only joined sort of halfway through the season. So thoughts on 19-20?
Upper middle.
Okay.
Actually,
This was the COVID year as well.
can we go upper middle for now? I'm torn on this one actually.
Okay. Let's go upper middle for 19-20.
This is the feeling I have. Forget about tactics as well. It's like the feeling. My favorite season, yeah.
Yeah, I think to win a trophy, to turn things around mid-season.
Yeah.
The FA Cup, we forget we beat City in the semis, beat Chelsea in the final. That was the Olympiacos moment where like it was poor, but we were a kick away.
And
basically.
Also Sheffield United were cooking that season as well. We beat them in the
in the quarterfinals.
In the quarterfinals. Danny
Yeah.
Ceballos.
Yeah. We had that nice win against United, the 2-0 when it was like Arteta's third game, I think.
Nope, second game. No, third game. You're right. Third game.
Christ.
Who scored the 2 goals?
Absolutely no idea. I think Pepe scored one, didn't
Yeah, do you remember the other one?
he? I do not.
Socrates.
2021. My instinct is it's somewhere down here.
It's definitely that one for me. It was awful. I hate
2021 was bad. It was Mikel's first full season in charge. It was that horrible marble kit, the blue away kit, and it was the Willian year, if that helps anyone.
But we did have some good moments though, right? Like that was the evolution of Saka right wing against Chelsea with the 3-1. That was the turning point with Smith Rowe, Spurs, North London derby, with the Lamela Rabona, and then winning 2-1 that game. Some good moments, but yeah, it was pretty.
We were poor. I'm just trying to remember, just looking at what happened in terms of. Yeah, we were 8th. We were 1 point off Spurs, who got into the Conference League. But just going through our results, it was pretty poor. We kind of picked up form towards the end of the season, but the top of the season was that we lost 3-0 against Villa. We drew 0-0 against Leeds. We lost 2-1 against Wolves, and I think that was the game where David Luiz got sent off. I'm pretty sure. No, that was the away one. Sorry. That was later.
Wait, so we just to clarify, we're doing this we're not doing it on Mikel's coaching performance. We're doing it on the feeling, isn't it? Like the feeling that we have.
I think we should do it based on Mikel's coaching performances.
Oh, Mikel's coaching performance.
But also kind of like it might be hard to do that. That'd be tricky.
Yeah, I think because I think 19-20.
Let's just do seasons.
Yeah. I'm doing it on my feeling as a fan.
Okay. Yeah, it's just the feeling of the year. We had a really poor run. That was the one we had 1 win against United away from home in 10. We got beat by City in October, and we didn't win again until December. Well, apart from that United game.
Got smashed by City 4-1 in the Carabao Cup as well.
Yeah. We went out in the FA Cup to Southampton. That was tough. Yeah.
Do you remember that? Who scored?
Nope.
Gabriel own goal.
It's lovely stuff. It's what you want in your sandwiches. 21-22. The last time we scored a direct free kick, which is good.
Against Burnley.
Yeah, mate. I'm going to go. We did come 5th this year.
See, this is where I was a bit torn, actually, because I might be willing to swap 19-20 and 21-22 just on the feeling. But then winning a cup. Actually, no, yeah. Lower middle for 21-22 for me.
But what's going to go in second worst?
This season. I've not liked this season.
I think that's harsh.
No, in terms of the feeling.
We'll argue that. We'll argue that in a minute.
Yeah, it's this feeling, like the feeling.
Yeah.
Hated this season.
Yeah, lower middle. We were in that piss yellow kit, but that was this was the year with the home win against Spurs in North London derby, I think.
Which
the 3-1. The 3-1.
Yeah, it was that was like Hale End excellence, Saka and
Yeah, it was the year we started. We had three losses in a row, and that was the 5-0. And then we kind of turned it around. And actually, apart from a bad run, so I don't know if you remember, but in the March of that year, March and April, so we lost to Liverpool 2-0.
Yep.
Jota and Firmino scored.
Played very well though. Played very well.
Yeah, we had a win against Villa away from home where Saka scored. I remember this because I was doing a kid's birthday party that day, and I had to watch it on my phone. And then we lost 3 games in a row: Palace, Brighton, and Southampton.
Yeah, but I actually think that season
only 3 draws that year.
Yeah,
you know
I thought that season for me that was quite an enjoyable season. I really liked that season. Genuinely, like there were some really bad periods, but it was like the Eddie Nketiah brace against Chelsea. In the 4-2. That was that season. There were some good moments.
There was some good moments. The beginning of that season was horrific.
Do you remember though? Like it was for a lot of people. I always go back to Smith Rowe Boxing Day 2020, but a lot of people looked at that Man City game, which we lost 2-1 on New Year's Day, as being the defining moment in the Arteta project. That was that season. So
22-23.
That for me, as my feeling as a fan, that is my favourite season. Going to the games, the vibes, that was my favourite season. I don't think it's our best season, but that for me is my favourite.
Yeah, but if we're ranking seasons under Mikel by like feelings and how good the season,
happiness,
how enjoyable the season was.
Yeah.
So just personally,
I was there for that Bournemouth game, mate.
Yeah, that was so good,
mate. That I'm telling you, I was with Brad. It was me, Brad, Raf. We're all stood together. I remember I went to Brad like when that corner came. I thought, it's just not happening for us today. And then I had the best view of it as well. The vibes. I've been going for many years. That season was my favorite ever season as an Arsenal fan. Like,
my only thing is, end of 23-24, we were better, but we were always behind. I felt like we were always like behind, weren't we? We were out in front for a lot of 22-23.
If you want to go by overall coaching performance, Arsenal's completeness, our best season is last season, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In terms of feeling, like 22-23, that was unmatched because, like, I didn't expect Arsenal to catapult in a title race in that moment, in that season.
Yeah.
So it's...
Yeah. But yeah, if we're picking enjoyability of the season... Yeah, do you know what? If we're picking how much I enjoyed that season...
Yeah.
I think 22-23 has got to be there. I think 23-24 has got to be there because a lot of that season I felt like we were a really good football team, and that's really enjoyable. And I
have not enjoyed this season. I've not enjoyed it. From an Arsenal point of view, I've not enjoyed it. Like, people think, we come on here and like we're happy to. I mean, always good to chat to you, Alexander. But it's like after a loss and draw, I like to be in my own space. Like, I've hated.
But it's not.
Season.
Do you know? It's what you said earlier. It's not even the losses and draws because we've only like in terms of
it's the injuries for me and the turbulence. Like, it's annoyed me so much.
It's been so disrupted, and I don't think anyone would have called it either. Just a very bizarre. I'm gonna try and get the result. I'm just get the results up. Because so right. If we go through this season, we had the win against Wolves and the win against Villa, both fairly, and the win against Villa was quite impressive. Then we had the Rice red card in a draw, which felt like it was a big thing. And then if you remember, the Ødegaard injury happened. So we had to go to Spurs, and that was just like we got it over the line. That was a good win, but it was a stress. Then we had the Trossard red against City in that game, which was horrible. And we felt so deflating at the end. Then we had 2 wins. We had 2 wins.
You're doing it chronologically? Okay.
Yeah. 2 wins against Leicester and Southampton, but which both were at home and both should win. I don't know if you remember, but you do remember that Leicester game was horrible. Like, it was horrible.
There, mate. I mean, even though we like peppered them, but it was like it's like dying embers, isn't it, of the game?
Yeah, it really was. It really was. So we got it over the line, but it wasn't fun. Yeah. Then we lost against Bournemouth when Saliba got sent off. That was horrible. How was that October, bro? That's crazy.
Was a red card, in my opinion.
Then that horrible game against Liverpool.
Yeah.
Then that horrible game against Newcastle. Then that horrible game against Chelsea. That period really killed me.
Do you remember, okay, Arsenal didn't deserve anything against Newcastle, but Declan Rice agonizingly missing that chance. And then Chelsea, that move before Trossard had that chance. And if he had left it, Havertz would have had a tap in at the end. That's what made it even feel worse.
That was horrible.
And the Salah dagger, obviously, yeah. So
yeah. Then this was a fun little bit of the season where we beat Forest, West Ham, and United.
Forest was great. Forest and West Ham were great vibes.
They were that felt quite 23-24 this period.
Yeah.
This little that run of 2 games.
Because you also have Sporting as well. Remember, Sporting is in this cluster as well, and won 5-0. So
yeah. You're forgetting the Champions League draws and losses that happen as well. But just going on league, then we had that which was the early dagger, and that was the late ruled out Saka Martinelli goal. That horrific game against Everton. Horrific. I was actually at a wedding. But
I was watching these on the tiniest screen in India. Both those games. My God.
Horrible. Palace was a bit of fun. Jesus' sort of renaissance.
Palace was good.
Ipswich was okay.
Although Palace was a bit stressed, though. Do you remember the game? Some of the chances Palace had. Yeah.
Brentford scored first. Brighton drew.
Yeah.
Spurs 2-1 was fun, but again, they scored first. Villa 2-2 with that late disallow. It feels like every game. Wolves was with the Miles sending off. That was probably the most fun game this season. And then we had Leicester, which was late goals from Marino. We haven't had any processions. It feels like there's been no periods of the season where we just beat. Every win has had to be ground out.
That's why I've not enjoyed the season. I've hated it. Hated this season.
And the thing is, you expect obviously to fight, to fight for a league, obviously, but not this much.
No. I think that list is I think that's accurate in terms of feeling.
In terms of enjoyability of the campaigns.
Come on, 22-23 was so good as well. The weather was banging. Early season, the vibes were so good. That Leicester game, the 4-2. Jesus.
I was popping off on YouTube first time. Do you know what I mean?
There you go. So there's personal.
You met me. Do you know what I mean? It's great.
No, we met before that.
No, in person. That's the year we met.
Oh yeah, in person. Oh yeah, last day of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We are approaching apprentice time.
Let's finish with a quick Q&A before we get out of here. Thank you all so much for being here, watching us on this TCP Live when Arsenal are not doing the business, to put it that way. Rumours that Arsenal will come to Hong Kong to play Spurs in July for pre-season. Would you guys go for the derby? I would fly back home to watch it if it happens, says Whole Milk.
Well, not Hong Kong, but I do want to go to...
I'd love to go to pre-season somewhere.
Yeah. Where do you really want to go to in the world?
Australia.
Really?
Yeah, I really want to go to Australia.
The place for me has always been Japan. I've wanted to go to Japan for so long. That country is just so advanced. It's just... This year, I'm going to go this year. Watch me going this year. Watch me.
You're going to run there?
I'm going to run there.
You're going to run there. It's going to be more than 5K, mate.
That guy, though, who ran the entire length of Africa, Hardest Geezer. Yeah, that's mental. Absolutely mental.
Paul James, our destruction of Man City was on the 2nd of Feb. How quickly we've regressed.
You see that picture of the Stay Humble, the amount of quotes that's got now, even though it's so poor. This is what's wrong with social media. Everyone is so interested in getting likes, retweets, instead of enjoying the moment.
And Carragher.
A group of lads enjoying themselves at the Arsenal after a win against the champions, and now they're getting clowned. There's everything wrong with social media. Everything. And you got Carragher as well. Some of my feelings on Jamie Carragher are cancelable. Some of my feelings on that guy. Hate that.
No comment.
The football
Simon
maybe more as well.
says Hypno. Which talent has been most wasted during Mikel's reign?
That's a great question.
Like arguably Pepe. Because it's just not his get. It's just not who Mikel. It's like the opposite of a Mikel signing. Like that's an honest slot signing. Do you know what I mean? At the time,
there's a case for Martinelli.
Yeah, case for Martinelli.
In terms of, I've said it many times. In terms of the way we use our left winger, it doesn't suit Martinelli, and in terms of maximising him. But if you use him in a different way, I'm a firm believer that Martinelli has got levels to go.
People in the chat saying Vieira, Joe Willock. No, come on.
Joe Willock's he's top decent, but no.
He's a good player, but he's not top level.
No, not top level. Good player though.
That's Joe Willock and like Iwobi plays like that. They're perfect examples of just like sell at a good time. And they're good. Like you can just be a good Premier League player. You don't need to change the world.
I love Iwobi though. I absolutely love Iwobi. Like, yeah, got a lot of unfair stick. I think.
Vlad, if you could sit down and interview one player, and let's assume that player would answer all your questions honestly and openly, who would you pick? Ooh, good question.
One player. Oh, is this not just Arsenal? Like,
yeah, I think anyone. I'd probably go Saka. Just because it would be like, like what was said here, and what does Mikel think of this, and are you going to leave?
I'm intrigued to talk to Ozil after COVID. Like, what happened after?
Yeah, in that period.
Because Mesut Ozil started every single game from the moment Mikel Arteta in the league started every single game from the moment Mikel Arteta came through the door to then when the pandemic started. So the last game before the pandemic was West Ham.
Yeah.
And then after that, he played no minutes whatsoever. Nothing. Didn't play a single game. Not a single minute. I'd be very interested.
It's really interesting. And it's never really come out why. Yeah. Like with the Aubameyang, like they clearly had a falling out.
Yeah, Aubameyang, you can tell. Yeah. But Ozil.
Pep, I'm just not that interested in what happened. That's the only other, I guess. Yeah, probably Ozil. Someone says Jorginho for like insight into what's going. Yeah, maybe like Jorginho and Odegaard to talk about like another like my game and my words type thing that Declan Rice did.
Yeah,
like with them would be unbelievable.
Definitely with Jorginho. Yeah. Jorginho would be good for that.
Don't lie, it would be Carragher. I can say one thing on this, and sorry to be that guy. There is so much more to these things than a lot of people think. That's all I'll say. There's so much more. There's so many politics behind the scenes. I'm not trying to do the, I know stuff. There's just so much more to these things than people think. That's all I'll say. Tipsy says Ozil was vocal about the Chinese government. The God didn't like it. Yeah, I think that's probably
that was obviously. But I wonder if there was a bit more though. Like I wonder if there was something else as well.
Forder says Ben White, but just to go on a dog walk.
Yeah, I'd actually like to do that. Me and Ben.
That would be sick.
Walking our dogs. Although my dog's not very sociable though, so I don't know how that will work.
Yeah. Ozil walking at Baku did it for me. Yeah.
I love Mesut Ozil as a player. One of my favourite ever players.
Top 3 Arsenal players?
What? In terms of what, watching?
I think all time.
And we've not watched. Okay, Thierry Henry is top.
Thierry. Yep.
I've
just personal taste. Just personal taste. Henry's top for me.
He's top. He's everything I want in a forward.
Yeah.
Everything.
Honestly, Saka's second for me. He's everything I want in a modern player. He can do everything.
I really love Ozil.
You don't have to whisper, mate.
I really loved Ozil. Ozil would be
Yeah.
for me. I genuinely like. I don't think. Well, people do. This is a generational talent, and people don't realize the running power Ozil had in his peak as well. This guy was electric. Go back and watch that Germany-England game.
Yeah, he
all
was
those
top.
years.
No, he was top. I think
if I would have
for
been,
me.
if I would have been able to watch them more. Dennis Bergkamp was absolutely out of this world. Like I've studied it, I've watched games back, but there was a comp going around like all of his passing. That's like Kevin De Bruyne. Dennis Bergkamp
he was crazy.
is like Kevin De Bruyne in terms of the range of his passing. He's nuts.
He's crazy. I never heard of him because he was born before. I was born in '97.
Oh yeah.
Cazorla. I think probably Henri Saka Cazorla. Or maybe Henri Saka Sanchez. I loved Sanchez so much.
I was always more of an Ozil guy. Do you know what? I can't pick him because of what he did. But Robin van Persie was out of this world as well.
Yeah, he was. But only
it's because he had a lot of injuries.
His Arsenal career did that. And I think that you forget the beginning of his career maybe wasn't. Just the way Sanchez was playing for those couple of years, just like
I would not have Robin van Persie in my top
just the way he just explode, mate. Physically. Incredible. Right, it's Rohan's apprentice time.
Yes, we've gone over.
We've gone over into his apprentice time by talking about old players, which I've never heard of. Let's finish there. Thank you all for being here. Fabregas, yeah, we'll be up there somewhere in my top 5 or 10.
Fabregas, Snakes.
Yeah, they'll be up there.
Snakes.
Yeah, it's just the way they left it. Thank you for being here. We are here every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Make sure you subscribe and like the video. Thank you all for your super chats. Thank you all for being here. As we said, there's a scouted episode coming out tomorrow on Jamie Gittins. And there is a data pod coming out on Saturday, and then an instant reaction next week. All sorts of stuff. Also should say for people in this chat, probably relevant because I forgot to say it yesterday, but Forda is hosting stages on our Discord after every single match. So make sure you check that out. And if you want to join our Discord, I think you can just join like quickly just for that and then leave. I don't think you even have to. I think you can get kicked. But anyway, I've already watched that scouted. If you're a YouTube member, I accidentally put it public earlier. You haven't. I privated it, and then there's another bit as well. I'm just an idiot. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Rohan.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching, and thanks for keeping it Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying.